we get a tough road game early in the season, which probably is not ideal with the young roster we've got, but it's the schedule, we've got. Richie's done a great job at South getting transfers. They've gone high major transfers, transferring down. Now they've gone with the best Division II players in the country, transferring up, and they can obviously play. They played New Mexico really tough on the road. Mexico's a quality team, so we've got our hands full early in the season. I mean, season's 7 days old, and we're going on the road already. So, we're going to have to show some maturity to play well. They've got some talented players. I mean, Kevin Samuel's very productive in the Big 12. He's there now. He's a load. I mean, he's bigger than any of our bigs. So we're going to have to handle him well. The guards they've got, Parham's obviously super talented, but Moore kid that transferred up from the D2s played really well, pushing a triple-double at New Mexico. So we've got a tough game in front of us, to be honest with you. So they played us tough here last year. It was a 5-point game here last year. They played us tough in our gym. Now, they feel like they've got a more talented roster, the best roster he's had since he's been there, and we got to go on the road. So we're going to have to play well.
Obviously, first road game that counts, but you guys have played games away from here. What are some of the things you want to take from the TCU scrimmage, from the foreign trip, and then what kinds of things do you need to see improve from that?
Yeah, I mean, the foreign trip, obviously, the first two games weren't very good. Chinese national team was good. We played well from that. We were kind of able to, use our athleticism against them, but it wasn't a true road game, obviously, because we were playing in Europe, and they were coming from China, and we're coming from the U.S., so you can get a little bit of that just because you're not playing in your own gym. You don't have the crowd behind you. I would hope that we'd have quite a few Alabama fans down there in South. I mean, that's part of the reason we agreed to do the 2-for-1 is to get kind of all the Alabama fans down in Mobile area a chance to watch us play. So, it's a road game that, they're used to playing in their gym, but I'm hoping that the crowd's not what it was, say, in Seattle against Gonzaga last year. I'm hoping it's a little more neutral crowd, or maybe even tilted our way. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. I know Auburn played down there, I think, my first year here. And if I remember right, that was a 1-point game that easily could have gone South's way. So, I mean, they've had some high major teams in there in the past and played really well. So, I talked to our guys about playing on the road. I mean, what's the difference? You're playing in a gym you don't usually play in. We're going to go in there and, make sure we're used to shooting in their gym. And then you don't sleep in your own bed the night before. I mean, there shouldn't be. The floor's still the exact same floor. We're still officiated by high major officials. We're like, maybe the crowd gets a little bit more into it, but if you're letting the crowd dictate your effort in a game like that, that's a question about your maturity. So we just need to go in there and play our game and get better at what we have to get better at. Defensively, we've been pretty good these first two games. Offensively, we've struggled with some things. Our turnovers have been too high. We've got to get better at execution. Our offensive efficiency after opponents made field goals has been really bad. We've got to do better at that. We got to get better at stuff we've got to get better at that we've been working in practice, and that's kind of been our focus here.
You mentioned last year's game being pretty close here. Is there carryover from that? Any corrections that can be made, or is the roster just so different?
I mean, their roster's so different with all the transfers they've got, and our roster's so different. We definitely look at those games just to, they got the same coaching staff, and we do what they're trying to do versus what we're trying to do. But, they've got a lot of different players. So you definitely look at it, but I don't know how much of it's applicable just with the change in rosters on both sides.
I've got two. Just, do you have an update on Dom and Darius? And then secondly, after the game, you talked about Jaden Bradley's defense against McGee. Just how has his overall game kind of progressed since he got on campus?
Dom and Darius, neither one of them did much in practice today, so I'd probably say they're both doubtful based on how they wake up tomorrow morning and feel. But We'll see where they're at. Jaden Bradley's defense on McGee. I think Jaden Bradley's tough, gritty, competitor, winner. I think that's why he was highly rated as a recruit. You know, it's not like there's any one thing that just bounces off the page. He's not like a freak athlete. You know, he's not an unbelievable shooter. He's just tough, gritty. You know, I try to, kind of compare him maybe to some Marcus Smart type, like just make all kinds of winning plays, like guard the other team's best player, take care of the ball, make sure our team's getting a great shot when you're in the game on offense, high IQ guy. So, and he's coming. He's, I think him not playing for almost 6 months with the foot injury, obviously put him behind. He's catching up. He's getting more comfortable in the offense. He's starting to figure out his teammates, how to set them up better. I mean, that's a big part of what he does is make his teammates better. He's figuring out where all the different guys want the ball, where they like getting their passes, where he can hit Charles on a roll, Pringle on a roll. How can he get Brandon? How he can get Amari, playing him together with Sears. Where does Sears like to get the ball? He's got some elite shooting around him. So just we want I tell all the guys this, but is the offense better when you're on the floor? Is the defense better when you're on the floor? I think he's one of those guys that really takes that to heart and tries to make sure that the team is better when he's in the game on both sides of the ball by what he can contribute.
This kind of goes back to the mental maturity thing, but do you do anything differently for a 9 p.m. tip-off? Does it kind of change the preparation? And then also I think you got one, 9:30 against Michigan State, so does it kind of help prepare for that?
Yeah, the Michigan I don't even know what the Michigan State, is that 9:30 Portland time tip? 9:30 our time, so it's 7:30 out there. So we're going to get out there and get adjusted a couple days early. So the 9 o'clock tip basically for TV is, it's not ideal. We practice in the morning, so that's super late. But look, we'll wake them up later. Maybe hopefully keep them up a little later tonight. Wake them up a little later tomorrow. Start our day a little later and try to just. We kind of work backwards from the game. You get game tips here, so our pregame meals here, shoot-arounds right before that. If we can get it ideally, then we just kind of work backwards. So when you work backwards, they're college kids. They'll sleep in as late as you let them usually. So we'll just start breakfast a little later than a typical day. And the day will just start a little later for them.
Want to ask you again about Jaden Bradley. You were talking about him a second ago, but in the first 2 games, he's had offensive ratings above 130. Are you looking at those type of stats, and does that kind of show what you were talking about before, just how good he is on the floor, especially when he's starting to kind of figure out the offense and how to get guys those?
Yeah, no, we definitely look at that stuff. We look at, the offensive efficiency when they're on the floor, which is what you're referring to, versus off the floor. So what's their plus minus on the offensive end, plus minus on the defensive end, and he's gotten much better here. Those numbers that you're talking about were not there in the TCU and even Southern Illinois games. So, and we look at those numbers. We're huge in analytics. I'm a math guy, so we look at those a lot. Now, there's all kinds of factors that factor into that, seeing the game when the other team just misses some wide open threes. Do we happen to get a couple? But I think, over the course of time, if those numbers continue like they are, it's going to definitely tell you something about him being in the game. So 2-game sample size on some of that stuff's a little small, but, it's a great start. Shoot, if he can keep it up, it's still holding true 6, 7, 8 games in, it's going to say a lot about, him being on the floor for sure. Thanks.